We have a deficit in this country. The deficit is not just financial, it's a deficit of leadership. More specifically, it's a deficit of effective leadership. I've served in the Army for the last 13 years. The Army is built on the theory of transformational leadership. The Army defines leadership as providing purpose, direction, and motivation to your subordinates to accomplish a common task. The purpose is the why, the direction is the way, and the motivation is the want or the will. Motivation is greatly impacted by purpose and direction. So if they understand why and what and the way that they're going to do it, it greatly impacts the want to do said task. The Army defines the levels of leadership as direct, organizational, and strategic. Direct is 1 to 100, organizational is 100 to thousands, and strategic is thousands to hundreds of thousands. So the domains of leadership here, the way that you implement your leadership isn't very much different in principle, right? At the strategic level, you can only impact a percentage of individuals in a positive manner. All right, at the direct and the organizational level, you have a little bit more specificity in the way that you handle it, right? It's not always about double standards because certain individuals are different than other individuals. So you as a leader can develop these three areas: your presence, your character, and your intellectual capacity. Presence is about your demeanor, right? You can do the right thing, but do it in the wrong way. That means if I'm accomplishing a task or I'm telling my subordinates what to do, the way in which I'm telling them to do it greatly impacts the way that they accomplish the task, right? So if I'm always yelling, that's not going to be a very effective way of accomplishing the task, and it actually highlights your lack of intellectual capacity of understanding the task. So a leader of character, right, it's about do as I say and do as I do, not do as I say, not as I do. You want to imbue these characteristics into your subordinates. You want to give them something to emulate, something that they can copy, a macro of behavior that they can see visually and be like, all right, I'm going to do it that exact same way. Intellectual capacity is your knowledge of the tasks, like the list of tasks that are essential to whatever mission that you have as a leader. So the more that you understand about each individual piece of the puzzle, the greater efficacy you will have in implementing your subordinates. So the leader actions are about influencing, operating, and improving. So influencing is providing that purpose, direction, and motivation. That's how you influence the group, right? Operating is a little bit different. So there's a term in psychology called cognitive dissonance. So during the operation phase, you have a belief about something, and then new information comes in that is contrary to your specific beliefs, this axiom of your belief system. And no matter the validity of it, because of the way that it will affect you emotionally, your brain rejects it as just not true. So understanding yourself in that way will greatly impact your operational capacity. There's another thing where the 1/3, 2/3 rule. 1/3 planning, 2/3 execution, right? You can plan for every externality, but in that sense, you can plan for unknowns as well. So when an unknown comes, instead of taking the entire time to plan how you're going to affect this new issue, 1/3 planning, 2/3 execution, right? Because there's going to be a point where the amount of time it takes you to plan, that's going to build more issues onto that original issue. So a decision is better than no decision. But in that same sense, there's another term called tactical patience, where you have to allow the situation to develop. You have to allow all of the things to present themselves before you just make a reactionary decision. You want to become more methodical and less reactionary. Now, improving is about improving your subordinates to take your place and improving yourself to take the place of the person above you. A good rule of thumb is to understand the positions 2 above and 2 below where you are, so that you can effectively implement your subordinates based on the initiative that is given to you by your superiors. You want to be able to embody this capacity to take initiative in the absence of orders. So to develop yourself as a leader, these are the three domains in which transformational leadership theory talks about: institutional, experience, and self-development. Institutional is very cut and dry. It's about college, technical capacities, this, that, and the other. Experience is about just being on the job specifically. Self-development, on the other hand, there's a man named Maslow who has a hierarchy of needs, right? At the top of his hierarchy of needs is called self-actualization. And that just means having awareness of your situation specifically. So you and what causes you to do what you do. What creates the patterns of behavior inside of you. At the same time, you have to understand the patterns of behavior that create the dimensions that your subordinates operate in as well, right? And that takes empathy to be able to understand so-and-so's wife just cheated on him, so he's acting in this way because of that. So giving him a little bit of grace and this, that, and the other. So in closing, it is your responsibility to develop your subordinates to take your place. You are accountable for what your subordinates do and do not do. But you can only control your actions and your reactions. That is the only thing you can control. And as a leader, there's a level of stress that is involved in maintaining this one principle of I can only control what I do and how I react to what others do to me.